There were tributes in State Parliament too for the victims of the blaze, and there was plenty of debate about preference deals with an election looming. I spoke to political reporter Melinda Howells earlier. Melinda, it was a sitting week tinged by sadness.
It was, Jess. We started off the week with condolence motions for former Labor MP Ken Vaughan and the Nationals' Neil Turner. There were also tributes for the Townsville-based soldier killed in Afghanistan, Private Matthew Lambert, and for our ABC colleagues John Bean, Paul Lockyer and Gary Ticehurst, killed in the Lake Air helicopter crash. And of course there were some emotional speeches about the house fire at Slacks Creek, which claimed 11 lives. As the Premier said, it's been a pretty awful year for a lot of people.
Mr Speaker, without doubt 2011 has been a year of heartbreak for many Queenslanders, and today another Queensland community is shrouded in grief. Today we wrap our arms around them in their pain and we say to them that we will be there for them in the very sad times ahead.
And obviously the opposition supported that sentiment, Melinda, but there were other points of contention in Parliament as well.
Yes, we still saw the usual partisan politics make a return, and while we still don't know when the next election is, the issue of preferences really dominated debate this week. It started with the government trying to get the LNP to rule out accepting One Nation preferences, which they eventually did, but then the LNP wanted the government to rule out accepting preferences from the Greens. And now initially both parties said that they would be pursuing the very successful Peter Beattie strategy of just vote one at the next election. But then the Premier got into a bit of hot water when it came to whether or not she would accept preferences from the Greens.
I refer to the Just Vote One campaigns run by the Labor Party in previous state elections, and I ask, will the Premier support a Just Vote One campaign and rule out any preference deals at the next election?
Mr Speaker, under my leadership at the last state election, Labor went recommending to Labor voters a Just Vote One, and that's what we intend to do at the next election.
But it turned out that wasn't entirely true, and later that night the Premier came into the House and apologised for misleading Parliament. It turned out that there were deals in several electorates, including her own.
I would expect it's most likely to be a Vote One strategy, but we will not be locking ourselves into any position until we know in every electorate who's standing, who the independents are, who the minor parties are.
Melinda, we also saw some long-awaited modelling this week on the impact of the federal government's proposed carbon tax.
Yes, this was something that the government had promised back at the budget estimates hearings, and this week the Treasurer released two reports, one from Treasury and the other from Deloitte Access Economics. They show that the average power bill in Queensland would rise $190 a year under the carbon tax, and the cost of running public transport, for instance, would increase by $5 million.
The report finds that the effect on growth will be marginal during the transitional next decade. Despite the hysterical scaremongering, the economy will grow and grow strongly with a carbon price.
If the report the Treasurer released today is such a strong endorsement of federal Labor's carbon tax, why have 4 ministers today failed to commit to supporting that carbon tax?
Jess, this is another issue that we're going to hear a lot more about as this very long pre-election campaign continues.
There were some pretty serious issues discussed this week, but we also saw some more silly behaviour.
Yes, that's one word to describe Craig Wallace's antics in Parliament this week. This was his contribution to the debate on the Bruce Highway and what he says is the opposition's plans to toll the road.
You put your Bruce plan in, you take your Bruce plan out, you put your toll tags in and you shake them all about. They go beeping, beeping and they turn about. That's what it's all about. Beep.
But as a stunt, it worked because here we are talking about it, Jess.
Indeed. Melinda Howells, thank you.